Hello. Welcome to my little workshop. I'm Doug. Hello. Probably not in frame again. I was just recently talking with a friend about impacts. They just took up woodworking. They're not really like tool freak like me. I'm trying to explain the difference of an impact gun and an impact driver. How one of them sort of you can do both and one you can't. Just thought it'd probably make for a good video because I'm sure not everybody knows about all the impact spiel. I have a feeling pretty much every person on the planet would recognize the sound of an impact gun, especially an old school pneumatic airline impact gun that anybody over the age of 45 and older, this is all they had. And it was coveted. This was a big deal to get one of them here in the Rust Belt. It was everything. It was a huge deal. It sounds ridiculous to say, but to get one of these air impacts was a very big deal. It's everything in the Rust Belt here. Everything is rusted and seized and doesn't want to come off. It'll usually end up rounding off or snapping off. But the impact, just from the physics of what it's doing, has the ability to break those loose. It for the most part, that was the only sound you heard coming out of a garage, was one of those. It was just, people would do entire European clutch jobs using only one of those for the entire job. They're just coveted and handy prized possessions. There's also what's known as an impact driver. Being kind of new to woodworking here myself, into like 15 months now, I have one impact driver, and it came in a set, and I really never used it until recently, and I've been using the crap out of it ever since. And there is a difference for sure in the two. There's an impact gun and there's an impact driver. Now, the impact itself requires special sockets and adapters. You don't want to use chrome sockets and adapters on an impact gun. Chrome in some ways is brittle. It's strong in one way and brittle in another. If you look at an impact socket, they are kind of soft metal, but they're not brittle. It's a little bit difficult to explain. But the chemistry, the metallurgy is such that these are very hard but brittle. It doesn't take much to crack this, but it takes a lot for it to round out. These are made out of a much softer metal. These you could never probably crack it with a hammer, but they would probably round out a lot easier. Well, the force of an impact gun, inside of there's what's called two hammers. The air causes these hammers to swing pretty frigging fast. And in the motion of them swinging, two things happen. They hit an anvil, which causes the ugga-duggas, the actual impact. And it also lines up a valve that reverses it. So this is all happening really quickly. Tons and tons of force. And the hammers are ripping. So it's hard to explain, but you get a lot of power with an airline. If you take like a BB and put it in a Bic pen and just take a regular air gun, and it comes out of there strong enough to break skin. Air has a lot of power. Even with a little velocity, air has a lot of power. And they utilize that in an impact gun in the simplest way possible. And to rebuild them and everything's fairly easy because they're very simple. There's two swinging hammers that when they go back and forth, they are causing an impact. And they're also lining up a tiny little valve that causes it to shoot in the other direction. It just keeps doing that back and forth. A mechanic's impact gun is pretty much just nuts and bolts, sockets. That's it. An impact driver, you can drill. You can use it like a drill. You could put bits in there, such as, Phillips screwdrivers, flat blades. You can put sockets, just like with an impact gun. You can use one of these in the same fashion. They're not nearly as powerful, but you can't do that with one of these. And I have a few battery powered impacts that I have at the machine shop. They're very handy, and oddly, they're the most, I don't know what the word is, as far as companies fudging the numbers, impact guns are the worst category. Then they always lie about their numbers. They inflate them grossly, and it's just a huge industry standard for these people to lie like crazy. They don't really do that with other stuff. I don't know why, but anyway, I have my good ones at work. I have, the most powerful ones they make, but I keep them at work. These are the ones I have around the house, and you could tell the difference where the impact guns are gonna have this end on there that just accepts a socket, and an impact driver is going to have an end on there that's going to accept one of these bit holders. These bit holders are nice. They're generally magnetic, and they snap in and out of here. And in many cases, if you didn't have a bit holder, many accessories have hex ends that will lock in there. And you can also find drill bits that have the hex end, which is nice because it'll never spin. A lot of times when you're drilling, you can't get that chuck tight enough. The drill bit's forever spinning in the chuck. That won't happen with this no matter what. But you can also snap sockets on there and take off sockets, nuts and bolts stuff, which you can't do with one of these. You cannot drill. I mean, you can't, you can't interchange. You can't drill and drive screws. You probably could drive a screw, but not really with an impact gun. But an impact driver, you can actually use it to remove nuts and bolts and use it as a drill. So that's one thing. I was trying to explain that, and it was just kind of weird. And I didn't ever really realize it until fairly recently myself. I've used this for so much ever since. I probably sat on this for over a year and a half without ever touching it. For a video when I first got it, maybe. It came in a set with some other stuff that was on sale. There's so many impact guns and impact drivers. The drivers are always a lot cheaper. The drivers are a fraction of the price of the guns. They work with smaller hammers and faster action. It's very similar. It's just like the difference of like a jackhammer and a tattoo gun. Kind of both doing the exact same thing, just at a vastly different rate. But anyway, I just couldn't, I was having trouble like texting and explaining the use of a driver, a drill driver, impact driver, and why you'd want it, the differences, and the things that with the impact sockets. So if you do end up using chrome with an impact of either style, you can very likely break it. And I've done it many a times. And it's actually dangerous because it can shatter. But, yep, so the impacts are softer and they're not going to crack. You know, these snap-on sockets are so expensive, you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk it. It's usually, a lot of times they'll break in here, or it'll break the anvil off of your impact gun, because these are so hard and they're like not designed for impact, that it ends up damaging the anvil on the gun, in many cases snapping it clean off. And that's another reason why you want to use impact sockets, because they're softer, they won't let that happen. But for drilling, driving screws, driving big lag bolts, doing little jobs on a car like putting a battery in and out, this thing is really handy. I do all kinds of stuff with this. And they're, you know, fairly inexpensive. Kind of a must-have, I think. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.